Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Here's what happened the moment my wife decided I wasn't useful anymore, and how, just 7 days later, she was the one begging me to come back. It started with lipstick. Not on her collar, no, that would have made too much sense. It was on the mirror, written in big, angry letters. You're the problem. I stood there, still dripping from the rain, holding a bag of groceries I bought on the way home. Chicken thighs, frozen peas, her favorite ginger ale. I stared at that message like it was a riddle. Then I heard the rustling outside. I opened the door to the backyard, and there it was, my life, tumbling across the grass. Shirts, belts, my clunky old laptop bag, my nightstand books. Even the ugly Christmas sweater her mom gave me, which I never wore, by the way. All of it, out there, soaking wet, and there she was, Denise, standing in the doorway like some kind of suburban executioner, holding my electric toothbrush like it personally betrayed her. "Get out of my life, Ellis," she shrieked. I'm done pretending this is anything but a waste of my time." I didn't say a word. I just watched as she threw my flannel pajamas, the same ones she used to steal during snowstorms, into the mud like they were radioactive. She wasn't crying. She was giddy, like she'd been waiting to do this. I bent down, picked up my things one by one. Wet socks, my notebook, the stupid pen she bought me that said #1 husband. I didn't say anything because I knew if I opened my mouth, I'd either beg or scream, maybe both. So I left. No shouting, no grand speech, just me, driving away with my life in 3 garbage bags, while she slammed the door behind me like I was a salesman or a ghost. That night, I slept in the parking lot of an all-night laundromat. The spin cycle was the only sound I heard for hours. I watched my clothes tumble in slow motion and wondered what I'd done wrong. Again, and again, and again. I didn't know then that she was already spending money like I didn't exist. Our joint account? She drained half of it. My emergency savings? Transferred. Rent for the next month? Unpaid. But she didn't know one thing. Something I never told her. And when the bank called her a week later, that something came back to haunt her. The rain didn't stop that night. It felt symbolic, like the sky itself wanted to rinse everything away. I sat in the front seat of my truck with a damp towel behind my head, staring at my phone screen, waiting for a message that never came. Not even a "don't forget your charger," or "the kids miss you." Nothing. Just silence. I scrolled through our old texts, read the dumb memes we used to send each other. Felt like reading someone else's history. By morning, reality had settled in. I was officially homeless, jobless for the week. I'd called in sick, and heartbreakingly stupid for not seeing this coming. But it wasn't until I checked the bank app that the full picture came into focus. The balance? Lower than it should have been. Way lower. I stared at it, blinking. I refreshed it. Still the same. My checking account, our joint savings, even the automatic transfer I'd set up for emergencies. She'd moved most of it out. The kicker? She renamed the joint account to Personal Fund. Real subtle, Denise. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. Emailed. Nothing. I even wrote a message I never sent that said, "Did you mean to financially stab me too?" But I deleted it. I wasn't going to grovel. Then I remembered something she didn't know. The secondary account. The one she always ignored. Years ago, I set up a savings account with a different bank after watching a documentary about sudden divorces and hidden assets. I forgot about it until that morning. It had been collecting dust and small deposits for years, nothing major. But enough to matter now. More importantly, her name was nowhere on it. That same morning, I walked into the nearest branch of our old bank and closed everything with my name on it. The teller looked at me like I was nuts, but I signed the forms without blinking. "I'm not trying to be petty," I said, more to myself than her. "Just safe." Exactly 5 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I ignored it. It rang again, then again. Finally, I picked up. Ellis. It was her voice. Not angry, not smug, nervous, almost broken. Hi. I just got a call from the bank. They said everything's locked down. I tried using the card this morning and it declined. I was At brunch with people. It was embarrassing. I said nothing. They told me there's no access without you, she continued, her voice shrinking with each word. I thought the rent came out automatically. Didn't, because I canceled it. Just like I canceled her fantasy life. She had no idea what else was about to unravel. Because the next revelation, that would break more than just her brunch plans. She called again that night. Twice. I didn't answer. The third time, she left a voicemail. Her voice was softer now, trembling in a way I hadn't heard in years. Ellis, please. I didn't know the rent hadn't gone through. They put a notice on the door. Just call me. For a moment, I felt something twist in my chest. Not love, muscle memory. That old habit of wanting to fix things, smooth things over. But this wasn't a broken coffee maker or a jam drawer. This was deliberate, calculated. She threw me out like expired milk and expected me to fund her brunches? I remembered how she used to glance at my paycheck stubs like they were junk mail. How she'd call my job basic, when she thought I couldn't hear. Meanwhile, I was the one up at dawn, sweating through 12-hour shifts so we could keep the lights on while she played entrepreneur with a skincare MLM she never even broke even on. But she looked good doing it, I guess. 2 days after the rent bounced, the landlord texted me. Said he was confused, hadn't heard from the missus, and wanted to know if we were renewing the lease or planning to vacate. That was when I realized something important. The lease was still in my name. She never got around to changing it, even though she was so ready to erase me from her life. So I called him, explained that I had been removed from the residence and wouldn't be renewing. He didn't ask questions, just thanked me for letting him know. That same night, I got another message from Denise, this one a little less sweet. Did you tell the landlord we're leaving? Why would you do that? I have nowhere to go, Ellis. No, not anymore. She'd made that very clear. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because what she didn't realize was that while she was busy pushing me out the front door, she left her digital closet wide open. Synced accounts, cloud storage, shared documents. And that's when I saw everything. Photos, screenshots, messages. A conversation with someone named Z, filled with late-night heart emojis, promises, even plans. Plans that included me moving out. Long before she ever threw my things on the lawn, she had coordinated it, timed it, and worst of all, she thought I wouldn't notice. I guess she didn't expect I'd ever find out that while I was patching up our leaky sink, she was mapping out her life without me. Down to the dollar. But what she really didn't expect was who Z turned out to be. That part shattered everything. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the motel chair, hunched over my old laptop, clicking through messages she clearly never thought I'd see again. Part of me expected to find someone new, a gym trainer maybe, or a guy from her book club, someone mysterious. But when I finally scrolled far enough and found a saved contact labeled Z, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a stranger. It was Zeke, my cousin, my literal flesh and blood. Zeke, the guy I'd helped get back on his feet after his third failed business. Zeke, who slept on our couch for 2 months after his last breakup. Zeke, who I trusted, who Denise used to complain about constantly. Turns out that was just a cover. Behind my back, they were sending photos, meeting up, laughing about how dense I was. In one thread, Zeke joked, "He'll never see it coming. He thinks loyalty means weakness." Denise replied, "He thinks love means staying stuck forever." I closed the laptop. For a full minute, I couldn't move. My ears rang. I didn't cry, not because I didn't want to, but because something colder took over. I was humiliated, yes, but beneath that was a rage I'd never felt before. Not the kind you yell with, the kind that sharpens you. She had weaponized my kindness, my predictability. She thought because I didn't fight back when she kicked me out, I wouldn't figure out she'd already replaced me with my own blood. The next morning, she texted again. "Please just call me. We need to talk." So I did. She picked up on the second ring. "Ellis, thank God. I'm freaking out. Everything's falling apart." And I cut her off. "How long has it been going on with Zeke?" Silence. I could hear her breathing, caught completely off guard. She didn't even try to lie. It wasn't planned. It just happened. You were always so unavailable. That was her excuse. That I was unavailable. Because I worked late. Because I brought home groceries instead of flowers. Because I built our life while she planned an escape route with a man who didn't even have a working credit card. I hung up. No screaming. No begging for an explanation. But that call wasn't the end. Because the next person to call me was Zeke himself. And what he confessed made me realize Denise's little empire was about to collapse faster than she could scream brunch. It was around 11:40 p.m. when Zeke called. I remember the time clearly because I just brushed my teeth with one of those disposable motel toothbrushes that feels like it's made of cardboard. His name flashed across my screen like a ghost. I let it ring out the first time. The second time I answered mostly out of morbid curiosity. He didn't start with hey or sorry. His first words were, "She lied to both of us, man." I didn't respond. I just let him talk. And oh, did he talk. According to him, Denise had spun an entirely different story. Told him we were already separated. Said I had emotionally checked out years ago. That I was cold, distant, living in the garage, and that the marriage had been dead for a long time. Zeke, the idiot that he is, believed her. He thought he was stepping into a broken marriage, not demolishing one. Thought he was rescuing her from misery, not stealing her from someone still bleeding for the life they built. "She told me you were abusive," he added, his voice quiet, guilty. I don't know, man. I thought I was helping her. That was the part that stung the most. Not just the betrayal, but the rewriting of who I was. While I was the one paying bills, fixing leaking pipes, folding laundry, she was out there painting me as some monster so she could play the victim in her little affair drama. "She's been different lately," Zeke continued. Snapping. Unhinged. She even started talking about taking out a loan together. Wanted to use my name for a car lease because her credits tanked. That's when it clicked. She wasn't in love with Zeke. She was using him. Just like she used me. He was the next wallet, the next fall guy. Except Zeke didn't have a wallet. He was broke. Living gig to gig. And suddenly realizing he'd been drafted into a nightmare. "I'm out," he said finally. I told her I was done. "I thought you should know. I'm sorry, Ellis." I didn't say, "I forgive you." I didn't say, "Thanks." I just said, "Now you know how it feels to be disposable." After that, I blocked his number. The next day, Denise showed up at the motel. I don't know how she found me. Maybe she guessed. Maybe she checked my location history on one of the shared apps we never unlinked. She knocked on my door like we were still married. Like she hadn't torched everything. I opened the door and there she stood. No makeup. Hoodie. Eyes puffy. The confident, smug woman who screamed at me to get out of her life was gone. "Can we talk?" she whispered. She didn't know I already knew everything. But she was about to find out just how much I'd prepared. She stood there like she was lost. Like the woman who kicked me out in the rain had evaporated and left behind a shell that didn't know what to do next. I didn't invite her in. I didn't even step aside. I just stared at her until she said it again. Softer this time. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe. "Talk about what? The weather? Your brunch schedule? Or maybe how long you and Zeke have been laughing behind my back?" Her face changed. Not shocked, caught. Like she'd been bluffing through a poker game and I'd just turned over a royal flush. "I was going to tell you," she said quickly. I didn't want to hurt you more than I already had." I almost laughed. It was the kind of line that sounded sincere in movies, but in real life it's just insulation, a way to avoid accountability. She looked at me like I was supposed to hug her, cry with her, offer forgiveness on the spot because she showed up. "Zeke told me everything," I said, "including the part where you tried to use his name for a loan. That was a nice touch." She bit her lip. Her eyes welled up. "Ellis, I messed up. Okay, I messed up bad. I thought I wanted something different. I thought I was suffocating in our life, but it wasn't the life. It was me." I didn't respond. I wanted to see where she'd go with it. And she went deep. She talked about her childhood trauma, her fear of mediocrity, her craving for excitement. She said she didn't even like Zeke, not really. Said she wanted to feel alive, and didn't know how else to do it. Then she smiled, actually smiled, like we were in a moment of connection. But maybe this was the wake-up call we needed. Maybe we could, I don't know, rebuild? That's when I realized. She hadn't come to apologize. She'd come to negotiate. Her world was falling apart. Zeke gone, her credit wrecked, her rent overdue. And now she was trying to slide back into my life like nothing had happened. Like I was the safe place she could return to after setting the house on fire. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I just looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You didn't want this life. Now you don't have it." And then I handed her a manila envelope. She opened it right there on the motel walkway, her hands trembling. Inside, a printed copy of her messages with Zeke, the bank records, the lease termination, and most importantly, a formal separation notice. Her smile disappeared. "You already started this," I said. "I'm just making sure it ends the way you wanted." She didn't cry. Not there, anyway. But she walked away like someone who had just realized there was no plan B. What she didn't know was that I wasn't done. There was still one final string to cut. And it was the one she was most terrified of. The next morning, she texted me again. This time, it was just 3 words: "I need help." No emojis. No punctuation. Just those 3 words hanging there like a cold breeze. I didn't answer. I didn't even open it fully. Just previewed it from the lock screen while sipping coffee from a paper cup, staring out at the motel parking lot. The same spot where she once picked me up in our old Corolla with a thermos of soup when I had the flu. That memory felt like it belonged to strangers now. I knew what she meant by help. She was scrambling. The utilities had likely been shut off by now. Her brunch crew had probably ghosted her the second she stopped paying tabs. And I could almost guarantee she had no idea how to navigate a lease termination, car insurance cancellation, or even an online bill pay system because I had done it all. Quietly, willingly, out of love. But love doesn't survive betrayal. Not the kind she dealt me. There was one last piece she hadn't accounted for. A separate account I'd been funding for years. Quietly, automatically. Originally meant as a future fund for vacations or maybe a side business I always talked about starting but never did. Denise never knew it existed. And after everything, I decided to repurpose it as my new beginning fund. I contacted the bank and shifted the account into a trust. One that she couldn't touch. One with her name completely erased. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming something. I'd spent years building a life with someone who saw me as background noise. Now I was building something just for me. And then, out of nowhere, her mother called me. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly a year. Denise always insisted she hated me. But here she was on the phone, voice shaky. "Ellis, she's falling apart. I know she doesn't deserve sympathy. But I thought you should know. She's talking about moving in with a friend across the state. Maybe even quitting everything." "She already did," I replied. "She just didn't realize it until now." There was a pause. Then her mother said something I didn't expect. "I warned her. I told her you wouldn't always be the one standing in the doorway waiting to forgive. But she thought you'd never leave." That stuck with me, because she was right. I used to be the guy who always stayed, who always tried, who always forgave. Not anymore. But there was still one final moment coming, the last confrontation neither of us expected. And it happened in front of people she never wanted to see her like that. It happened 2 weeks later at the grocery store of all places. I had just finished picking up a few basics: cereal, coffee, frozen dinners I didn't have to explain to anyone, and was heading to checkout when I heard someone arguing at the customer service desk. Loud, desperate, familiar. It was Denise. Her hair was tied up messily. Her hoodie looked like it had been pulled from a donation bin, and she was holding her phone like it was about to explode. "No, I don't have another card. I don't know why it declined. I transferred money this morning." People were staring. The same woman who once prided herself on elegance, on keeping up appearances, now unraveling in public over $74.83 in groceries. She turned and saw me. For a second I thought she might ignore me, or pretend she didn't see me. But no. She walked straight over, her eyes wide, panicked, like I was a lifeline she'd thrown away too soon. Ellis, I didn't know you'd be here, she mumbled. Can we talk? Just for a minute? I looked at her, really looked at her. This wasn't the woman who screamed at me to get out of her life. This wasn't the woman who smiled while replacing me with my own cousin. This was someone who had finally, painfully, hit the bottom. Denise, I said calmly. You've already said everything you needed to say, and so have I, just not in words. She blinked, confused. I left you in silence. That was my answer. I paid for my groceries, nodded politely to the cashier, and walked past her as if she were just another face in a crowd. Not with spite, not with bitterness, but with peace. And that's what I really want to leave you all with. No revenge, no grand gesture, just peace. I moved into a small rental house a few miles away, started working part-time on that side business I always pushed aside for later. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was actually living my own life, not surviving someone else's chaos. Denise eventually moved out of town. Zeke, I heard, tried to rebrand himself as a dating coach online, which honestly just makes me laugh. Me? I'm good. I'm healing. I'm free. And to anyone who's ever been tossed aside like yesterday's trash, you are not disposable. You are not replaceable. You just forgot your worth until life reminded you. Now I want to hear from you. What was your moment, the turning point where you finally chose yourself? Drop it in the comments. And if you've stuck around this far, thank you for being part of this wild ride. You've been watching Reddit Confessions, where every ending is a new beginning.